The Cynefin framework is a wonderful framework created by Dave Snowden, a complexity researcher from Wales, not the other Dave Snowden in Russia. And it's a fantastic framework that helps us understand and look at what kind of problems are we dealing with. Because what he's found and what we're finding with complexity research is that, generally speaking, there are different types of issues we face, which means we have to approach them in a different way for the most effective resolution. And the Cynefin framework is a wonderful visualization of this. It is a model or framework, and therefore it's not going to be perfect. Right? It's always going to have some flaws, but of the ones I've seen, it's by far the best one. What's also cool about it is that it's still developing. They're still adding to it and changing it as they learn more. Very much using that scientific approach of, as we find further evidence, we update our understanding accordingly. So if you look at the framework I've got behind me, and you're seeing some language that doesn't correlate with the language you've seen before, that's because chances are, since you last looked at it, it's changed. Or if you're looking at this far in the future, if this looks out of date, it's because once again, they've made it even better. And it's split into 4 larger categories, of which one is actually a joint one. And it kind of talks about cause and effect is how I like to describe it. Levers and dials, where depending on the kind of problem you're dealing with, you can either figure out what lever to pull on to make a certain dial move in a direction or not. And with clear and complicated problems, you can understand before you do any work really, just by looking at it, thinking of it, and having the right kind of knowledge, which levers to pull in what order to get the desired results, which is great. That is why they're called ordered problems. With clear problems, what's nice about them is you can just do it. Any reasonable person can figure out how to go about figuring it out. With complicated problems, you do need some knowledge. You need some kind of expertise in the area, which means you need to have done some learning about it. But once you have that, you can reliably plan a course of action and execute on it to get good results each time. When you move away from the ordered side into the complex side and then finally chaos, complex problems are tricky because, well, now we can no longer see the link between cause and effect before we start doing the work. It doesn't matter how much expertise you have to do something to see how it responds. And that's painful and tricky, and it requires a very different approach, where before you would have sat down and analyzed and thought about it, and then made a plan of action to execute on, and you'd know that you'd get something good at the end of it. With complex problems, you need that experimental approach. You need to poke it, probe it, in the language of Dave himself, and then see what happens. Now, the good thing is once you find those links, once you run experiments, you find those things that works. Again, using that levers and dials approach, you walk into a room full of levers, and you want to make the dials look a certain way. Well, you set a goal for them to look a certain way, and then you'd run experiments. You pull certain dials. Once you find certain dials do certain things to the certain levers do certain things to the dials, now you can replicate that. You can do that again and you'll get the same result once more in that environment, which is great. And over time, you will find all the emergent practices you needed to get to where you wanted to go. The cool thing about that is for that particular problem that you solved, you could now teach someone else how to use that. You could become the expert in that environment and teach others how to do that thing. So for them, it's closer to a complicated problem because you're not an expert. You can actually show them, hey, if you do these things in this order, the dials will look that way. But before anyone figured that out, that wasn't knowable. And if you were not there to teach them, for them as well, it would still be a complex problem. Fun little thing. And finally, you have chaos. Chaos is where, again, the link between cause and effect is not knowable up front. You have to just do stuff. And even worse, where before in complexity, the links would emerge and you could find them and replicate them. In chaos, these variables are changing too rapidly. Things are happening too much. It's far too volatile, which means experimentation and planning is not going to get you where you need to go. You need to just act. You need to just do to try and get out of that situation. I often explain chaos with children's birthday party. Because if I say children's birthday party, people always go, yeah, chaos. Been there, I've felt that. Because chaos is definitely something you feel in your gut. Something's wrong, something's not good. and you know instinctively that you want to get out of it. The best way to do that is to just act on it, figure out what's happening, respond accordingly, act again until you're out of it, which is scary. And that's why we don't like chaos. Sometimes we end up there, whether we like it or not. The key thing is to get out of it as soon as we can. And the middle zone here is a extra fun one, and it's about confusion. It's when you're not sure which environment you're in. Maybe you haven't figured out Cynefin well enough, or maybe you're not seeing enough about the problem to understand what kind of problem you're dealing with, what environment are you operating within. But even better is that lets you then listen to what the problem is actually telling you and act accordingly. Which is why the other word here, aporia, or being aporic about the problem, is something we actually want you to get to. We actually want you to not assume what the problem is, because that might mean you're using the wrong tool for the wrong job, so to speak. And that's not the intent. The intent is for you to use the relevant tool for the relevant job, which means you need to be able to listen to and see what the problem itself is telling you that it is. So aporia is that purposeful confusion almost, and letting the problem inform you what it is. So the Cynefin framework, it's really helpful because one, it can help you a little bit by knowing more about how the different environments present themselves. It can help you identify the kind of problems you're dealing with. And even more importantly, it can help you understand how to deal with them, how to go about working with them. As you may have guessed from me talking to them, complicated stuff, that's fantastic still for project management. That's kind of what it was designed to do, right? Make a plan, get the relevant people in, and execute, and get reliably good results. Complexity, well, this is of course where Agile and Scrum belongs. It's what it was almost developed as a response to, because we realized, hang on a minute, these problems are not the way we thought they were going to be. They keep misbehaving and we can't figure out these links before we do the work. We need a different way to approach to this, a more adaptable, agile approach. And that's exactly what it does. We set goals, we run experiments until we get to where we want to go. That's the Cynefin framework. If you want to learn more, I strongly suggest you look at Cynefin.io, the official website for Cynefin. Fantastic website. And if you join any one of my courses, you'll of course learn a lot more about them as well, because this is super important to understand for any practitioner. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Oscar with Pragmatic Shift. You can find more of our stuff under @Pragmatic Shift on all social media. I would love to be your Scrum coach. And if you're interested in working with me, you can find my courses on pragmaticshift.com or about me as a coach under scrumcoach.uk. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out and gives us further reach to get to more professionals to help them on their journeys as well. Thank you again for watching.